as World War II was coming to a close, Wernher von Braun and his team at Peenemünde realized that they were in great danger. They were in danger because Adolf Hitler had sent a bunch of stormtroopers to Peenemünde to protect the von Braun team. But these were rocket scientists, they weren't dummies, and they knew that their job under Kammler was to exterminate the von Braun team if Germany lost the war, because Germany did not want, particularly Hitler, did not want this technology to fall into the hands of the Allies. So, some while before the end of the war, they decided to escape from Peenemünde, and they went south to near Innsbruck, first to Oberammergau, where the Passion Play is held, and they stayed there for a short while. And during on the trip, Wernher von Braun had broken his left clavicle, and so he had his left arm in a big cast. They had to actually re-break it because it wasn't healing properly, and they had to do that without anesthetic. But after they were there for a short while, they convinced their superiors, Dornberger and others, that they should actually split up. And so von Braun, because if the entire team was wiped out by Allied bombing, that would have been a considerable blow to the rocket program. And so Wernher von Braun and a select group of his finest scientists and engineers retreated to the German-Austrian border in a little village of Oberjoch, and there was a ski lodge by the name of Haus Ingeberg, and they stayed there for a few weeks, quietly expecting the Americans to come and capture them. But of course, the Americans were heading to Berlin to seek out Adolf Hitler, and then they heard on the radio that Adolf Hitler, the Fuhrer, had died while valiantly defending the fatherland. Wasn't exactly the way it happened, but that was the way it was broadcast on May the 1st, 1945. And they then realized that they were in danger now because they did not want to be captured by the Soviets, because there had been so many activities and so much horrendous things that had been done to the Russians, not only at the Battle of Stalingrad, but with a variety of other things, not just the Russians, but all of the Slavic peoples. So they certainly did not want to be captured by the Russians. The V-2 rockets had landed in England, throughout the United Kingdom, in London. There had been a number of V-2s that had killed people in London and in Cardiff, Wales, and other places. So they really didn't want to be captured by the British. They were very much afraid of the French as well. They wanted to come to America, if at all possible, because they thought they would stand a better chance with the Americans, and the Americans had not come to find them. So Wernher von Braun's younger brother, Magnus, convinced Wernher that he should go and try to find the Americans. And he argued that he was the youngest, he spoke the best English, and he was the most expendable of the von Braun team, which was indicating that the others had more knowledge and were more precious to this goal of space flight than he would be. So on the morning of very early morning, I think May 2nd or May 3rd, he got on a bicycle, an Adler, and he rode down from Haus Ingeberg. He rode through Adolf Hitler Pass, and as he was approaching Schwarzwald, there was a couple of American soldiers that were patrolling there, and they heard someone coming, so they hid in a ditch, and they saw that it was a person rather well dressed for the other Germans that they had seen at the end of the war, with a big trench coat and riding this bicycle. And as he approached them, they realized there was a white flag, a white handkerchief or white cloth on the handlebars. So Private First Class Frederick P. Schneikert had the courage to jump up out of the ditch and point his M1 Garand, and he yelled at the guy riding the bicycle, "Halt, kom forward met de handen hoch." Well, his grandmother had actually been born and grew up only about 100 kilometers from Schwarzwald, where they were at the time. She was German, and she had then traveled to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and as a young child, spending a lot of time with his grandmother, Private First Class Frederick P. Schneikert had learned German. So here's Magnus hearing an American soldier pointing an M1 at him, speaking in German. Kind of surprised him, but he did what he was told. He put up his hands, he dropped his bicycle, and he walked up to Private First Class Schneikert, and in English he says, "Take me to Ike," which probably scared the daylights out of poor Private Schneikert, because General Dwight David Eisenhower, Supreme Commander of Allied Forces in Europe, was not in his pay grade. He was essentially vastly above the abilities of Private First Class Schneikert to take him to Dwight David Eisenhower, who of course later became President of the United States. But he did take him back after talking with him for some while. He was told by Magnus that he was the brother of Wernher von Braun, and that up in the mountains there was von Braun and many people of the von Braun team that wanted to surrender to the Americans. Well, he took him back to the headquarters where they were at the border of Germany and Austria, and there was Lieutenant Charles R. Stewart was there, and his job had been to learn everything he could about V-2 rockets. When he heard that Magnus claimed that there was the entire team wanted to surrender, they interrogated him for several hours and soon learned that he knew far more about V-2 rockets than anyone in the West. So they realized he was legitimate. They fed him bacon and eggs and real coffee, and then they escorted him back to his bicycle after giving him 6 passes, and told him that if he were to bring von Braun and other members of the team to their pass point the following day, these passes would allow him safe passage. And so the next morning, 3 BMWs had been shined and polished by soldiers that were there with them at House Ingeborg in Overyok. And they came down with Dieter Hutzel and Bernard Tessmann, who had hid tons of documents from Peenemünde in a salt mine in Goslar. They knew the location of these V-2 documents. There were General Dornberger was with them, and when they arrived, they spent time there and then were taken to Reutte for more interrogations, and then it was decided that the von Braun team would surrender to the Americans, and in fact they told the Americans where the rockets were located, and that was a problem because they were actually in territory that had been divided up and belonged to the Soviets. So the Americans went very quickly and removed rockets and parts from Nordhausen. They went to Goslar and recovered the documents and scooped them out of Germany and off to Antwerp to be sent back to America right from under the noses of the Soviets. So this bicycle played a very critical role in the Saturn V program because the fact that we got Wernher von Braun and his team here to America, they brought all of this knowledge and they trained the Americans out at White Sands Missile Range about the characteristics of rocketry and how to build and work with V2s, which had been captured, and a V2 was launched and discovered the Van Allen belts, and then they started working on subsequent missiles that played a critical role in the Cold War and ultimately resulted in the development of the Saturn V class of vehicles that landed man on the moon. So this is a wonderful bicycle, 1938 or 39 vintage Adler that Magnus von Braun used to come and surrender to the Americans. Thank you very much for your attention.